Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today. A couple of housekeeping items real quickly. This session is being recorded, and we'll share the recording out to you after tomorrow. And we have a Q&A. So there's a box to your lower right. Feel free to input questions throughout the session, and we'll get to a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Our topic today is generative AI, or SPL. Well, we want to share with you our latest product release with generative AI, and we'll share that with you today. My name is Sancha Norris. I am the Principal Product Marketing Manager leading Splunk AI at Splunk. And my co-speaker today is Jeff Wiederman. I'll let you introduce yourself, Jeff.
Hey, everybody. Jeff Wiederman here, longtime Splunker, been around for about 9 years, and have recently shifted my focus to AI full-time at Splunk. So really excited to be here today to talk about the AI assistant for SPL.
Great. So here's our agenda today. We're going to talk a little bit about the AI landscape, Splunk's approach to AI, introduce AI assistant for SPL. Then I'm going to hand it over to Jeff to show you a live demo. It's really exciting. And then he's going to go into some of the technical, do a technical review of the AI assistant for SPL. And then we'll go into Q&A. And let's get started. So I want to start by level setting, like, why digital resilience even matters, right? And that's what our AI assistant is going to help you do better. We all know that downtime is expensive. If things don't, without digital resilience, you know, it's a highly costly mistake, and up to $200 million a year due to unplanned downtime. Things that, you know, from happening. And we also know that cyber risk is increasing with the complexity of technology. Just as we're using AI to detect, investigate, and remediate faster, our bad threat actors are also doing the same and using AI against us. So we need to keep an eye out. And resilience is also highly regulated. And this means not only in terms of fines and operating all together. So that's really important from a digital resilience standpoint. And anytime your business has stopped, your innovation has stopped, and your competition is getting ahead of the game. So this is why we're going to help you improve your digital resilience and posture. So Splunk is addressing the problem of digital resilience, how to keep IT stack performing more effectively, but also efficiently, from the application level all the way down to the infrastructure, and protecting it from potential breaches as well. And we do this with a unified security and observability platform that's powered by AI. And unified, I think, in this case, because you're using the same data, right, to solve security problems and solve observability problems. And that's why unified data is important. So you might ask, so what, we hear about AI all the time. What is really the big deal? And the number one reason AI fails is that it's not tied to business outcomes. So I want to just take a short minute here to talk about, why we care about AI. And ultimately, the bottom line is that it's improving our efficiency, taking and executing that into one step, built locally or globally. And I think with generative AI, it's really sharing, opening up a new channel of benefit, which is collaboration. You can use AI to break your ideas with your colleagues. But at the end of the day, all of this really goes towards improving your productivity of your team, but also the assets within your company. Into our next topic, I just want to get a gauge. This is our first polling question. I want to get a gauge of your AI knowledge, and in terms of who's in the audience. It also help us tailor our talk today, in terms of levels of content. So if you would mind taking a quick minute or a quick second to just give us an idea. Okay, so let me go to results. Okay, looks like most of our, okay, this is great, good information to have, a lot intermediate stage, and a few that that's worked with AI, and some who built their own models. That's great. Okay, so let's move on. So this gives me a good idea of the level of discussion that we can have today. So if you think about AI, it's been around for a long time. And it was actually the result of big data, with the ability to process huge amounts of data, that really spurred the growth of machine learning and made it really pervasive. In machine learning, there's different types of AI, right? With machine learning, deep learning and generative AI, that's more recent, good for different purposes. You definitely don't, with all the hype that generative AI is getting today, you don't want to do everything with generative AI because it's compute intensive. With machine learning, it's really good for like demand forecasting, anomaly detection, standard classifications. All of that is still, on machine learning. And then you've got deep learning with neural networks, detection, even natural language processing, and facial recognition. And then with generative AI, it's about generating content. So whether it's generating code, generating image, generating, it's taking information and generating analysis from that. That is also but all of this is under the umbrella of AI. And Splunk actually started off, as a very much a search and as a search manual process, right? You look in your data, do the analysis, and that's how Splunk got started. Over time, as machine learning became more pervasive and available to detect incidents better, identify causes, and help you take action to really remediate it. Things like predictive analytics, anomaly detection, adaptive thresholding, these are all capabilities that we added to help with detect, identify, and act. We're going to talk about generative AI and how we're using technology to really, with the potential of generative AI is summarizing content, and with execute, moving that forward with new capabilities. So all of this, evolution of AI at Splunk lands us here. This is kind of a depiction of Splunk AI in support of security and observability. We're going to build, AI assistants that's going to help you make your jobs easier, and supporting the technical functions of, data analytics and automation. And what we mean by that is, a data standpoint, you always need data to AI needs. So whether it's data itself or data management, with Splunk, you have access to both. We're able to get a lot of data, and I'll show you a little bit more about that in a couple of slides. And then we have it rich, whether it's machine learning or generative AI. And then again, using, with automation, with agentic AI, that's really automating the analysis pipeline and workflows. So takes multiple steps to really provide, go from detection to resolution. Agentic AI make that process. So,
hey Sanja, sorry, really quick.
Right. So,
Sanja, sorry, really quick. We got some people who are reporting that you're coming in a little choppy. So maybe you can kill your video to try to preserve bandwidth and see if you can.
Let me turn off my video. Let me see. That helps. Okay. Okay. So going back to this presentation, you have choices of which, you have choices of AI models. There are many large AI foundation models out there. Which one is the best for you? And I want to take time to, is the audio working? Seeing some comments. So we have the next poll. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so before we go to our next slide, I wanted to take a moment to do a quick survey of what the audience is doing. Are you currently using generative AI or large language models? Is it your personal account? Is your company really behind this and have an enterprise account? To get to market. Get that input. Okay. Small percent is running your own. A lot, everyone, a good bit is, I think many of us are using in a personal account, and a lot, 30% using an enterprise. I think that's that makes a lot of sense. I think. So in terms of what's on the market, I think you're maybe familiar, I'm sure everyone is familiar with ChatGPT and Gemini, and it's from Google. All of these very large foundational models are really good for all purpose, general purpose, query. OpenAI, I think this is just with GPT-4, 1 trillion parameters and $63 million, cost to really build that. And I think it's maybe even more now with Gemini, which is said to be trained on even more data. So it's, I think that's an option. And what but general purpose doesn't really know about your business. And I think let's contrast language models and services with something that's more domain specific. So large foundation models allow you to leverage Gen AI really quickly, and your company is able to then benefit from those models. But as I said, it's good for general purpose. The models aren't going to know about your products, your customer service, your sales, and then there may be data privacy and security concerns that your company might have. So, and then let's compare that to a domain-specific model. What is a domain-specific model? It's definitely smaller. Models built for a very specific purpose and very specific task. And this is, this model could be built by function or by industry or maybe even both. It's usually trained on your own data so that it understands your business. And then you can have that uniqueness of the model and that you can build into a competitive advantage. With a domain-specific model, you can also control your data privacy and security policies a little bit more and build that into your business solutions and workflow. So what do you need in order to build a domain-specific Gen AI model? There are really 4 things that you need to be successful. One is why that's the case. You also need the AI, but more importantly, the domain expertise. How do you apply, if you want to build a model for security, what data do you look at? What workflow should you have? What processes do you want to automate? Governance is also really important, as I mentioned earlier. Anytime, not just about data, but AI itself is getting more and more regulated. And then you have, with a domain-specific model that you built for your business, you have the ability to integrate into your business workflow, and that's definitely a benefit. So let's now talk about Splunk for a domain-specific generative AI service. In terms of data, Splunk has SPL data and also data from our community. We don't use your data ever unless you opt into it specifically to share, so that your data is safe. Cisco are one of the pluses from our integration with a merger with Cisco is that we're able to we will be able to leverage a lot of the data that Cisco collects on a daily basis. And going to domain expertise, and a leader in security and observability, as rigorously evaluated by Gartner. AI governance, Splunk Cloud is compliant with a lot of stringent regulations and rules. So all of that will still apply to our generative AI service. And then, I want to emphasize this again. Everyone's concerned about my data, right? Your data. Your data will stay yours unless you opt in to share with us. And then integration into the workflow. Our AI capabilities are built right into our platform and into our applications, so that it's part of your, it's part of your workflow and it's seamless. So now I'm really excited to introduce our first generative AI product, the Splunk AI Assistant for SPL. And before I go into that, I want to just take our last and final survey real quick. Have you, in the audience, have you used the Splunk AI Assistant for SPL yet? We've launched this back in June. We'd love to know who's tried it yet. Okay, looks like a lot of people in the audience haven't tried it yet, and you'd come to the right place. So we're going to talk about this in more detail, and now I'm going to transfer it over to Jeff, and hopefully he will not have any audio and video problems that I'm having.
All right, no problem. Can everybody hear me okay? Am I coming in loud and clear? All right, let's hope so. Good deal. All right. Cool. Yes. So as Sancha said, we have just gone generally available. We announced it at .conf this year. Our first generative AI application called the AI Assistant for SPL. So why did we develop the application in the first place? I kind of want to talk about that for a second. So if you think about, how Splunk works, obviously Splunk is a platform where we're going to collect machine data, bring it all into one place, and allow, IT operations analysts, security analysts, SREs to be able to query that data, search it, visualize it, and analyze it in order to get value from it. And the way that they get value from that data is they use our search processing language, SPL. Now, SPL is an incredibly powerful language, but as we've looked across our customers, we've noticed that if you look at any particular customer, a lot of times there's a small number of people within that customer base that are, or within that that organization, that are what we call Splunk ninjas. They're able to write SPL and they're able to maximize the value that they're getting from the Splunk platform. While there's a lot of other people who may not have the time or may not have the right tools in order to be able to learn that language. And so the broad adoption and the broad value of Splunk can be a little bit stymied by people's ability to learn SPL. And we've tried to solve this problem in the past with other technologies, but the rise of generative AI is going to give us a really promising path forward to making sure that everybody can become an SPL ninja. And so there's three major capabilities of the application, and I'm going to switch over to the demo environment. I'm not just going to talk about them, I'm going to show them to you. But really the first one is we can write SPL from natural language prompts. The second one is that we can take an existing SPL query that somebody else has written, and we can actually understand what it's doing by getting a natural language description for it. And then finally, with Tell Me About, instead of having to go out to our Splunk-based documentation and pore over different docs, we have the ability to ask the assistant a question, and it's basically trained on our Splunk-based documentation, and we can get answers there. So again, those are the key capabilities of the assistant, and that's really the reason why we developed the assistant in the first place. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and let's tempt the demo gods, and let's see if we can do a live demo. All right. Just a quick check. Can everybody see my demo screen? Maybe Sancha or Jacqueline can come off mute and tell me that we are looking at the AI Assistant demo screen.
Yeah, I'm only seeing the word demo. Because if Sancha can see it, that's great.
Okay. All right. Good deal. So this is the main user interface of the AI assistant for SPL. So like I said, here are kind of our three main capabilities: write SPL, explain SPL, and tell me about. And each one of these buttons is effectively leveraging a different, kind of generative AI model and technology under the covers. And so if we want to write SPL, we're going to click on our write SPL. If we want to have the assistant explain SPL to us, we're going to click on explain SPL. We've provided some sample and example prompts directly within the application so that you can better understand, what the purpose of each kind of area is. And then finally, like I said, if we want to have, answers based on our Splunk-based documentation, we're going to go ahead and click on the tell me about. Now, over in the upper left-hand side of the screen, you'll notice kind of this chat interface that should look a little bit similar to ChatGPT. Obviously, our UI was a little bit inspired by the popularity of ChatGPT. So as we want to ask new questions with the assistant and new prompts, we can leverage the new chat button to start a new kind of chat thread. As we ask the assistant different questions, we're going to see the different chat threads that we have kind of building out here on the left-hand side of the screen. These chat threads are specific to each person, and they're going to stick around, across multiple different Splunk sessions, so we don't proactively delete these. So as you continue to use the assistant more and more, kind of your chat history is going to grow over here on the left-hand side. So let's take a look at the first main piece of functionality, which is write SPL. So imagine that I'm a newer security analyst, newer to Splunk, right? And we've just found out that there is traffic that's coming into our AWS cloud region from an area that we don't do business. Now, if my job is to investigate that issue, I may have an inclination that the problem has been caused by a modification made to an AWS security group. But if I don't understand Splunk and I don't understand SPL, then it's going to be challenging for me to be able to just think up the SPL on the fly of what that might look like in Splunk in order to find that out. And so what I can do instead is I can actually put in a natural language prompt, like write SPL to determine who's made modifications to any AWS security group and output the results in table format. And when I click the button to have the assistant produce the response, you will see that it begins producing an SPL query that I can then use in order to go and find that information in my environment. Now, one of the things I want to talk about here is that this is really great for newer users of Splunk. I still think that ultimately our users are going to have to learn SPL and acquire that knowledge, but this is really a tool that allows newer users to acquire the syntax and understand the commands of Splunk without having to go and bother those Splunk administrators and bother those Splunk ninjas to try to get those questions answered, okay? And so there's really three things that the assistant's helping us with. The first is it's helping us understand the syntax of Splunk, right? So there's a language associated with this, and we can better understand it. It's also helping us to understand some of the commands that Splunk has, like the table command. If I don't know what the stats command is or how to aggregate data, we're actually able to learn about different commands that Splunk offers without having to go read the documentation. And last, but I think very importantly, this is also helping us to understand how data is structured when it comes into Splunk. Because, AWS data, for example, when it lands in Splunk, it's in JSON format. And the structure of that data, the different fields that we have access to, isn't necessarily extremely intuitive for a new user. So we're helping you understand the SPL syntax, we're helping you understand SPL commands, and we're also helping you understand the structure of your data. in the related content drop down here, we can see that, if there's, in this case, the command has, or the SPL has the table command in it. So we have hyperlink directly out to our Splunk-based documentation. You can learn more about that command there. You'll also notice here with the thumbs up and the thumbs down that we are collecting feedback from you. And so we really encourage you, whether you give us a thumbs up because you think the SPL was good, or whether you give us a thumbs down because you think the SPL is bad, we really want you guys to provide feedback. So not just a thumbs up or thumbs down, but give us a description of why. Is the SPL incorrect? Is it not helpful? Is there some other problem? And feel free to provide a free text description to us. When you enter this information in and you submit it, that information is going to flow back to Splunk, where we're going to review that information in order to ultimately make our assistant and the models more accurate and more valuable to you. So assuming that we think this is a SPL that's going to help us out and we want to go run this search, we can copy the SPL query and send it to somebody or do something with it, or more likely, we can actually open that up in a new search box. Now, like all generative AI, I do want to be clear that we may not get the SPL 100% perfect, but we're going to get you about 90 to 95% of the way there. In this particular example, I'm going to have to populate the index. I'm going to have to populate the index that this data is coming in, but that was all I had to do. I just filled in the index and then I ran my search and boom, I'm getting my search results of who was that user that made modifications to the AWS security group. Okay, so that is the write SPL capability. Let's jump back now. Let's go ahead and do a new chat and let's look at what explain SPL is doing. Now, there's all sorts of situations where people are shooting SPL queries back and forth. Maybe you're in the middle of an investigation and somebody's slacking you an SPL query. Hey, I ran this search and it's showing me something that I didn't, that I don't like. Or maybe somebody's built a dashboard and there's a dashboard panel that you don't understand what the search behind that is doing. If there's ever a search that you want to better understand what it's doing, that's when we're going to leverage the explain SPL. And what the generative AI is going to do, it's pretty much the exact opposite of write SPL. We're going to take an existing SPL query and provide a nice, natural language description of what that SPL query is doing, what data sources are in use, what type of filtering is being done, what type of aggregation is being done, what type of sorting, and all that. And then I really, really like the fact that at the very end here, we're actually even giving you a brief summary of what we're seeing here. And this is really interesting because this particular query that I pasted in here is telling us that, it's really calculating the average of gaps, of duration of gaps between different events. And that's a pretty good assessment of what's going on here because I actually took this query from our InfoSec app, which was designed to identify command and control traffic. And that's something that, the signature of that is a repeat event that's happening over and over again on a consistent window of time. So the explain SPL is helping us understand what our search queries are doing. And then finally, let's assume that, I'm a new user and maybe I've heard about the idea of lookups, but I don't necessarily know what they are or why would I use them. So I could come in here and say, what is a lookup and why would I use one? And then what we're going to do is give you a nice short description of what a lookup does, why you might use it. Again, expanding the related content, we have the ability to kind of give you hyperlinks out to the relevant Splunk-based documentation for you to do some further reading and understand. Okay, so those are the major capabilities of the AI Assistant for SPL. And as I said before, I think this is really, really encouraging to kind of provide that tool that newer users are going to be able to use in order to understand and learn SPL more quickly. So if you're a Splunk administrator and you're watching this, you might be saying to yourself, I already know how to write SPL. I don't necessarily need to use that assistant. No, you might be right. But think about all those new users that you're trying to train up that are coming and asking you questions about, hey, what's this SPL doing? Or how do I do this? Help me write this search. This tool is going to free you up in order for you to do some of the more important tasks while allowing those newer users to kind of self-service. Okay, so that's really the value that we see in the assistant. Okay, so I want to shift gears here, and this is a tech talk. So let's do just kind of I want to peek under the hood and show you guys how this works, because I think based on the poll, a lot of people said they're relatively new to AI and generative AI. And so when you look at this and you look at what ChatGPT is doing, it almost seems magical, right? How can it possibly do this? But if we start to kind of look under the hood and see how this is working, we actually see that it's very cool, it's very powerful, but it actually can be understood, and we can understand kind of generally how this is working. Okay, so let's talk about how this is actually working and how this is producing results under the hood. And it all starts with our large language model that we use. Now, we've made the decision at Splunk, we're not necessarily disclosing which specific model that we're using, and that's an implementation detail. And quite frankly, we continue to evaluate models consistently through the course of new features and updates to the assistant. But what we can tell you is we're not calling out to a third-party company like OpenAI. We've leveraged an open source LLM that's available in the market. And there's a bunch of them that are out there. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to find which LLM is the best one to use to produce the best results that we can for the assistant. And so this was a process that we started when we were developing the assistant in the first place. And not all LLMs are created equal. They've been trained on different data sets. They have different purposes of what they're really good at. They have different parameters, numbers of parameters that are there, right? As an example, the LLM that we've leveraged is one that is designed to do code generation. And that makes a lot of sense because we're trying to generate SPL, right? So what we did was we did some iterative testing across a bunch of different open source models. And we tried to understand which LLM is going to give us the best results consistently. And the way that we did that was we identified a testing data set. And you could think of this as a prompt and a corresponding piece of SPL that is absolutely and conclusively correct and accurate according to kind of our expertise and our knowledge. And we built a whole bunch of those, a laundry list of these prompt and correct ground truth SPLs. And that is our data set that we use to try to identify which model out there is going to give us the best results. So we're going to run the prompt through a bunch of different LLMs, and we're going to find out which particular one produces the best SPL. Now, more on what types of metrics are we looking at here in a minute, but just understand that we had to go through that iterative process, and we ultimately landed on, a particular model that was outperforming everything else in terms of, generating the right SPL. And so it all starts with choosing the right model. But once you have the model selected, this is really where the magic happens. We leverage this process called RAG, which is short for Retrieval Augmented Generation. Now, some of you that are out there fully understand what RAG is and what prompt engineering is, and that's awesome. I think a lot of people, maybe they've heard the term, but they don't fully understand what it is. And I'll bet you there's a bunch of people on this Tech Talk who haven't heard that term at all. So what I want to do is I kind of want to describe what is RAG? What the heck are we doing? What does this look like? Okay. And so it really starts with, it's this pipeline of processing that we do from the moment that you enter the prompt into the assistant and you click the green button to go. There's this pipeline of processing that occurs that results in the response being returned back to you in the UI. Okay, and that's what this RAG pipeline is. So it starts with you providing some sort of a prompt. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to validate the prompt, make sure that it, it seems like you're trying to generate SPL, you're not trying to do something malicious, right? So there's some validations that we do. And then we do this thing called vectorization and augmentation of the prompt. And I'll explain what this is here in a minute, but this is really where the secret sauce is. And then after that, we do some additional prompt engineering. And then once we kind of take your prompt and do a whole bunch of modification to it, at that point in time, that's when we send it to the LLM to have it perform that final inference and generate the response. And then we provide the response back to you. So that is what the RAG pipeline looks like. And this is kind of how we've implemented it. Now, let's break that down through a specific example. Okay, so let's assume that you put in your user prompt. You say, write SPL to find hosts with the least free disk space in WinHostMon. Okay, so that's your prompt. The first thing we're going to do is, like I said, we're going to validate the prompt. Okay, generally speaking, we trust you guys. You're trying to write SPL. So most of the time, we're going to look at a prompt like this and say, that looks good. But we have several different checks that we're doing. We're looking for gibberish. We're looking for profanity, for prompt injection, those types of things, right? So hopefully it's a valid prompt and we let that prompt move on to the next step of the process, right? So, okay, that prompt looks good. Let's move on. The next thing we do is vectorize and augment, okay? And so, you'll hear us say at Splunk that data is the fuel for AI. And so, what's the difference between you putting this prompt in, say, ChatGPT versus you putting it in the AI assistant? Well, this pipeline is really a big part of the difference. So what we've done is we've gone out and we've created a database of tens of thousands of SPL searches, of SPL queries, and a corresponding description of what that SPL query is doing. Think about the corpus of data that we have access to at Splunk. Think about all of the searches that get run out of Splunk Cloud on a regular basis. Think about all the development that we've done on enterprise security content updates and Splunk Security Essentials and the apps that we've created on Splunk Base. Well, we've taken that entire knowledge base and we've extracted tens of thousands of SPL queries and corresponding descriptions of what those SPL queries are doing. And so what happens is when you put this prompt in here, what we do is we go to our vector database and we try to find other SPL queries that are kind of sort of similar to what you put in your prompt. It doesn't have to be exact. The ability to find something similar is exactly what a vector database is designed to do. It's really not trying to find exact matches, but find similar matches. So what we do is we take your prompt and we augment it with a bunch of different SPL queries from our vector database that say, like, here's things that are kind of sort of like what this user is trying to do, okay? And then we don't stop there. We continue to engineer the prompt further. So we put some boilerplate things on there. And if anybody's ever used ChatGPT, you've probably done some degree of prompt engineering, right? Maybe you've gone out and you said, hey, ChatGPT, I want you to act like a cat in order to answer my questions, right? That's prompt engineering. You're trying to define and to scope exactly how you want the LLM to process your request. So we're going to do things like, hey, don't use overly broad searches like index equals star or source equals star, because we know that those are bad practices, right? So we have a bunch of prompt engineering that we do. And it's really that full complement of data that we create that we send to the LLM and do that final inference. And then the LLM looks at all that information, and it says, okay, well, in order to search for hosts with the least amount of free disk space in WinHostMon, we would recommend you use the following query. And then it provides an SPL query, and that's what we surface up in the AI assistant for SPL. So Like I said, it's not that hard. It seems magical, but this process of RAG is really the backbone of how the assistant works. And to be honest with you guys, this is really the backbone of how almost all generative AI chatbots that are out there are working today, leveraging this concept of RAG and prompt engineering. And so sorry for having incorrect hyperlinks on the blog post that we created, but I think we got those updated for you guys, and you can go out and read those and get a better feel for what prompt engineer or what prompt engineering and for what RAG is. So I already hit on some of these, but some of the sample guardrail checks that we do. This is not an exhaustive list, but just giving you an idea of some of the checks that we're doing. We're trying to make sure that you don't have, you're not doing any profanity. Maybe there's a language that we don't support, right? So you're putting in, Mandarin, and we don't support Mandarin today. So detecting languages and making sure we support them, prompt injection, gibberish. There's a few other things we're doing, and we're continuing to, expand the guardrail checks that we do on a regular basis. So if you use the assistant and you put something in and you get an error back, it's a very good chance that whether it was inadvertent or not, it triggered one of these guardrail checks and said, this is not something we know how to go do. So those are some of the different checks that we do. Now, circling all the way back to kind of when I was talking about we have to select the right large language model, and I said, we have a set of test queries that we do to do this. The question is, well, how do we, what's the definition of good, right? How do we define which model performed better than any one? And listen, I don't want you guys to get too hung up on the names of the models that you see here, or even the numbers and the percentages. There's a few things that are really important about this slide that I want you to understand. The first one is that we are trying very hard, and we believe that based on the data and the expertise that we have, going back to kind of what Sancha said, we believe that we're uniquely positioned to create SPL that is more accurate and more relevant than anything else, right? And so we're actively testing and benchmarking the AI assistant for SPL against things like ChatGPT, okay? And so we're looking at a couple of different metrics. We're looking at, is it choosing the right index, the right source types correctly? Does the SPL that's generated, is it parsable or not? Is it executable or not? And there's a couple of different metrics that we have. So we're taking that testing data set, we're running it against the AI assistant for SPL, and we're running it against other models to try to ensure that our results are as good or better than everybody else's. And that's really how we dictate the quality. And then the last thing that I want to kind of close with here is that I've been demoing the AI assistant for SPL at trade shows quite a lot over the last 4 or 5 months. And, there's some people that come up and it's almost like they're trying to prove that the assistant can't do something correctly. And so what they'll do is they'll give, quite frankly, a really terrible prompt, and so find errors in logs is not a very helpful prompt, right? We want to be as descriptive as we possibly can. So consider reducing subjectivity and ambiguity within the prompts. Some examples of find all over provisioned instances. Well, there's some subjectivity in what over provisioned is. But if we can change that to say, find all EC2 instances with less than 20% average CPU utilization, that's going to indicate an over provisioned instance or under provisioned. Maybe I got that backwards. But you can see how much more descriptive the second prompt is than the first one, right? Also include what you know. There's multiple different ways to get data into Splunk. There's different, I can do metrics, I can do events. And so if we know what source types are, if we know what technology we're using, if we know what way we got the data in, just be sure to include what you know, right? If you're doing kind of follow-up conversational prompts, be explicit when you're doing that follow-up. And then, generally speaking, we would recommend that you start a new chat over the course of, obviously, every time you're starting a new question, start a new chat. And then don't spend too long iterating or grinding within one single chat. Give it a few, follow-ups. And then if that's not working for you, start a new chat. So based on how we're implemented today, those are some of the key best practices that we'd recommend. Now, if we've got you excited, it's time to get you started. the AI assistant for SPL is currently free for a limited time. So we do have the plan to make to probably include a pricing structure within the AI assistant. But for now, it's available for free for everybody. So we would recommend you guys, capitalize on that opportunity. And then do understand, listen, if and when we do make this a paid offering, there's probably still going to be a free tier, and we're not collecting your credit card now, and we're not going to automatically charge you, okay? We are going to have you re-sign and understand what that paid offering would look like. So don't worry about that. And then in terms of availability, it's available to most of our Splunk Cloud customers. And again, if you're an ES customer or you're an ITSI customer, even though the assistant is not within ES or ITSI, everything in Splunk is based on writing SPL and understanding SPL. So highly encourage you guys to use the assistant for your security investigations and for your IT operations investigations. And when you scan this QR code, which hopefully many of you had, that's going to take you out to our EULA that has to be signed in order to use the AI assistant for SPL. And then finally, we do have more assistants that are in development right now. So this is just the first of many that are coming. So the AI assistant for SPL is generally available. If any of you are our Observability Cloud customers, then we are currently in private preview for the AI Assistant and Observability Cloud, so you can expect general availability of that coming fairly soon. And then we are in development right now on the AI Assistant within Enterprise Security. So we are targeting a private preview towards the end of this year with general availability happening probably sometime in the middle of next year. And then also, and this is a forward-looking statement, but I think, I haven't kept up on the chats, but there's probably questions of like, well, does the assistant help with managing getting data in or creation of dashboards and things like that, or tasks that an administrator would have to have? There's a tremendous amount of opportunity for us to continue to develop assistants to support all those things. So we are looking at the AI assistant to help with data management. So helping you get the right data in, helping you get those fields structured correctly and everything else. And then we're going to continue to evolve the AI assistant for SPL, integrating it more natively into the search and reporting app, adding new capabilities like being able to help generate dashboards and have it provide even more customized, personalized, and tailored results for your environment. And so with that, I think I will turn it back over to you, Sancha. I'm sure there's been a couple of questions, and we have a few minutes to answer those.
Yes, we do. Can you hear me? Is my audio any better?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, perfect. Okay, we do have a few questions. I think, Jeff, if you don't mind, there's been a lot of questions about how do I sign on and what that process looks like. I know you shared that slide about the QR code, where they go. Can you explain that process a bit about signing a EULA and how that gets provisioned back to the users?
Absolutely. Let me just go ahead to answer that question. I'm just going to share my screen one more time because everybody says, "Okay, I'm excited. How do I get started? What does it look like?" And the best way to do this. Sorry, I'm just making sure I get the right one. Really, guys, the easiest thing to do is to go out to Splunk Base and go directly to the app. It's called the Splunk AI Assistant for SPL Cloud version. Okay, so screenshot this. It's if you search for AI Assistant, this is going to come up. But really, what you want to do is you want to click on the installation tab. And as I say, this process is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Okay, in step 1. You're going to, you do have to sign a separate end user license agreement specific to this particular application. We have the URL directly to that EULA right out here. So you click that, you go through, read the EULA, sign it. What that's going to do is that's going to trigger a workflow on our side to basically do some technical work. So one of the things I didn't mention here is that The AI assistant for SPL, all of the inference that's being done is actually being done in Splunk Cloud Services, not within your environment. So some people are concerned about the impact to SVC utilization or something like that. There is no impact to SVC utilization because all that's running on Splunk Cloud Services. So what we have to do on our side is we have to build that connective tissue to the back-end Splunk Cloud Services from your cloud environment. So once you sign the EULA, that triggers a process for us to go and do that technical connection. And then once we're done doing that technical connection, we just make the app available to you via the self-service app install in your cloud environment. And that whole process takes about 3 or 4 days. So once we do that connectivity, you simply go into your cloud environment, self-service app install the AI assistant for SPL, and then boom, you're off and running. Everything's going to work.
Great, thanks for sharing that, Jeff. We also have a lot of questions about whether this is available on Splunk Enterprise and on-prem.
Yes.
So
yes.
I think,
as you guys can imagine, we've heard that one once or twice. So the answer is, as of right this moment, it is available in Splunk Cloud only and in select regions. And if you go out to our documentation, we can provide that as a reference link here. Our Splunk-based documentation describes exactly which regions this is available for. And the reason why this is currently a cloud offering is exactly what I just said, which is this is dependent upon calling back to Splunk Cloud Services and running inference on kind of GPU compute that we're managing for you. But with that being said, and I want everyone to hear me clear, with that being said, guys, we understand the importance of making sure the assistant is available to everybody and available to on-prem customers. So we are actively looking at, what technology or what set of technologies do we need to employ in order to make sure that the AI assistant can be made available to BYOL customers running on-prem. So it is a future item on our roadmap, and I can tell you it is something that the engineering team is already making steps towards delivering.
Great. Okay. One more question. Maybe this, I think we'll have time for this, make this our last question. Does the assistant keep a history like ChatGPT?
Yes, it does. So the history is kept kind of in that left-hand chat side that I showed you. And so, technically speaking, gets stored in the KV store. You can, clear that chat history out by right-clicking and deleting chats, or kind of wiping out that KV store collection. So yes, it is stored, and it's stored locally within your environment. So I think we're about at the top of the hour, and there's a very good chance that some of the questions that were asked maybe didn't get answered. So what we're going to do is we are going to make sure we review all of those questions, who asked them, and make sure that we provide appropriate answers for you. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Sanjay and Lesedi to wrap us up.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. So thanks everyone for attending this webinar. We will send a recording out of this webinar tomorrow. Also want to point out a couple of upcoming events that you might be interested in. And so be sure to sign up for that. So thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one.